At the beginning of the film, the main character in this film is shown named Hussein Diab. He works as a janitor at a museum in France. Hussein must go through security procedures when he goes to work, but his ID card shows he is named Luis Farina. Inside this museum, there is one luxurious piece of jewelry, which is called the Queen's Necklace, which will be auctioned next week with the opening price reaching 20 million euros. Hussein then met his ex-wife named Claire, and he asked permission to meet their son named Raoul. Hussein then gave Claire some money for their child support. Claire, who understood that her ex-husband only had a little money, and told him to keep the money for him to buy a present for Raoul. But Claire didn't realize that Hussein put the money in her jacket. Hussein then went to the three mafia gangs to ask when to pay off his debt. Because they were disappointed, Kevin dragged him to thrown from above the apartment. To pay his debt, Hussein invited them to steal the Queen's necklace because he already knew in detail the location of the museum. He explained security officers would check the entry and exit of goods and workers, except for the trash brought from inside, including cleaning tools. Kevin and Vincent will disguise themselves as guards while Rudy's job is to paralyze the surveillance room officer and turn off the CCTV camera after that waiting in the car. After Kevin and Vincent succeed in stealing the necklace, the three of them immediately run away, while Hussein's task is to be the buyer. The scene then flashes back to 1995 when Hussein was still a child, walking in the fountain park with his father, Babacar. At that time, Babacar saw his wife and his new boss, Anne Pellegrini, because her car had broken down. Babacar then repaired it. Because it was raining very heavily, Hussein told them to get into the vehicle. Hussein said they were from Senegal. After successfully starting the car again, Babacar drove Anne back to her house. Back at the museum, Hussein, who was working as an office boy in a matter of seconds, he turned into a rich man who was present at the auction night for the Queen of France's necklace. This time, he changed his identity to Paul Cherning. At the same time, the three Hussein gang broke into the museum disguised as janitors. In the main room, the auction committee said that the Queen's necklace was a gift from Louis XVI to Marie, who disappeared when the revolution but reappeared. 2 decades later, the necklace was in Napoleon's hands and given to Josephine. After touring Europe from the time of Sir Russia to Constantinople, finally became the treasure of the third generation. Pellegrini then bought the necklace from the person who stole it 25 years ago. At that time, Babacar became a driver of the Pellegrini family, saw Anne wearing the necklace. The chain broke then, and the 7 gemstones were scattered worldwide. Now the necklace is full again, and this is Juliette Pellegrini, the daughter of the chain owner. When his father was still working in the Pellegrini family at that time, Hussein already knew Juliette. The committee then opened an auction price for the necklace that's from 17 million euros. Elsewhere, the 3 people of robbers made a lot of noise to lure the officers. When these 2 security guards came, Rudy sprayed something in their eyes and hoped they would be in pain, but there was no result. Kevin and Vincent had to immobilize them with violence. Meanwhile, the auction process was still going on from the buyers who raised each other's prices to 30 million euros. That's when Hussein raised his hand. He dared to bid 33 million euros. The committee confirmed Paul's wealth on social media, which reached 576 million euros. Back when Babacar was working at Anne's house, and it was seen Anne's husband, named Habert, who was angry because of his work problem. At that time, Anne gave one of his book collections to Babacar, which he was allowed him to choose from in his library. Babacar then picked a book entitled Arsène Lupin, The Thief of Jatmaka. The auction process was still ongoing between Hussein and an old man named Kruger, who dared to bid 40 million euros. Secretly, Rudy sneaked into the control room to paralyze the officers. Because the magic liquid didn't work again, he used a trash can to beat him until he was unconscious. Meanwhile, Kevin and Vincent were already wearing security guard suits. After successfully turning off the CCTV camera, Rudy sends a message to Hussein to start his action. Hussein is bidding for the necklace for 60 million euros, because there are no people who dared to bid on it. Hussein then announces to be the winner. Hussein then asks the auctioneer for permission to take another look at the necklace, which they secure in the safe. At the exact location, Kevin and Vincent disguise themselves as security guards. The scene then flashbacks when Habert doesn't find his valuable necklace in the safe. He accuses Babacar, who had stolen it. At that time, Anne should have defended Babacar because she knew precisely that Babacar only cleaned up this library with her knowledge. Still, Anne was silent. Lieutenant Dumont, who investigated this case, then caught Babacar. When Hussein was holding the necklace, suddenly Kevin and Vincent attacked Officer Auction and Hussein. After that, they took the thrown chain and ran away from the museum. The visitors who heard the alarm ran out of the building to save themselves. The three robbers wanted to escape using the car driven by Rudy, but it turned out he could not control his vehicle, which is what happened. At that time, Hussein, still 14 years old, came to the prison to visit his father. It has been suspected that the officer who wanted to take him instead found Babacar had hanged himself in his cell room. Already he didn't have a mother, and Hussein had to lose his father. Since then, Hussein has hated the Pellegrini family. The three robbers and the Queen's necklace be able to save, as evidenced by the officer. Hussein disguises himself as Paul. He can survive because the auctioneer thinks he is also a victim. Captain Romain didn't believe him, but his man named Leonard reported the arrest of the three perpetrators and the necklace. He also said about Hussein Lupin's adventures, similar to this incident. When not to leave, Captain calls him to search. He was found under his jacket only a pen. Since his father's death, Hussein started reading a book about the figure of Arsène Lupin, a professional thief and reliable in hiding his identity. 2 weeks before the theft of the necklace, Hussein accidentally watched a television program about the auction agenda for the diamond necklace. His action began by registering to become a cleaner at the museum with the name Louis. With his expertise in hacking, Hussein changed his identity again to become a rich man named Paul. Hussein then asked for the help of his friend Benjamin to make a replica necklace. When the robbing happens, Hussein puts the authentic chain into the trash can, while the fake one throws it away. This action is not realized by the gang at all. At that time, Hussein, who became a janitor, took the necklace from the trash can. Because the procedure was that the garbage didn't go through a metal detector, so the officers did not realize that the chain was in it. Among the baby's diapers, finally, Hussein managed to get the original necklace. Leopard, who received information that the necklace was fake, assigned to contact the buyer named Paul Shermin. When he sees the book about Lupin, he tries to string up because he is suspicious. After picking up Raoul, Hussein gives that Lupin's book to him. Has not revealed the reason. Suddenly, Hussein is imprisoned. Was he arrested in the theft of the gem necklace? Hussein returned to Benjamin 2 days earlier, who had already checked the necklace. The story about the release of the gemstone that spread throughout the world is a lie, because Benjamin didn't see any traces of removal. Hussein concluded that the necklace had never disappeared from the Pellegrini's safe, and his father was not a thief as alleged 25 years ago. Because of that, Hussein determined to uncover the truth to return his father's good name. In 1995, Lieutenant Dumont came to Hussein's house to take him to social services because he is immature and there are no other relatives to look after him. He had tried to run away, but Lieutenant Dumont caught him again. Juliet and her mother had heard from the police that the necklace that the gang of thieves had brought was fake. Although they both looked calm, they were worried about the response of Juliet's grumpy father. Not long after, Juliet got a message from someone to meet at the park without the police. As evidence, the sender of the letter sent one gemstone from the necklace. Hussein disguised himself as a food delivery courier using a bicycle. A mother was seen carrying a baby wheel despite a surveillance camera in front of it. Juliet was surprised because the person who sent the gemstone was Hussein. Because knowing that Juliet used a wiretapping device, Hussein covered it with his hands. The police, who supervised their meeting, had difficulty hearing Juliet and Hussein's conversation. Juliet admitted that her father had deliberately made up the story that the gemstones in the necklace had been released so that they spread throughout the world, intending to increase the price. Juliet also said that Hussein's father pleaded guilty because of that. He was jailed. Because the undercover police were getting closer to Hussein finally running away, the chase occurred, but several couriers wearing the same costumes were also seen there. As a result, the police were confused. It turned out that this was part of Hussein's plan so that he could escape. After that, Hussein looks back at the gloves left by his father. In his last letter, Babacar mentions he is pleading guilty, but the truth will always be in the library. Which makes Hussein wonder if his father wrote a committed word. After Hussein traced it, there was a cellmate of his father named Etienne Comet. Because the man who was still in prison was sick, Hussein couldn't visit him. This is where Hussein started to do his crazy actions. He came to the prison to visit a prisoner named Jibril, who looks like him, to claim to be a cousin, even though Jibril doesn't recognize Hussein at all. Jibril laughs when Hussein wants to switch roles with him. Hussein goes to jail and Jibril can be free. Hussein is already arranged. At that time, there was an exchange of prison officers. It was easy for Hussein to do his handcuff trick. It turned out that this was the reason Hussein was able to enter the prison to disguise himself as a convict to reveal the truth about his father. When Juliet calls by Captain Romaine, he wants to know what they were talked about because, in the recording, Juliet seems to recognize the culprit. Feels cornered, Juliet threat will call his boss. And if that happened, then, in 15 minutes, he was going to be fired. Juliet told him to focus on getting back the original necklace. As a result, this captain immediately became angry. On the prison court, Hussein threw a basketball and then gave 2 packs of cigarette to the prisoner there. So he could get information about Comet. He said cell room number 241. On the other side, 2 prisoners don't like Hussein. When assigned to deliver blankets, Hussein got information from his cell roommate that Comet was in the prison clinic and would not return. Suddenly, those 2 prisoners attacked him because when he claimed his name was Jibril, he owed 1,000 euros to them, which he had to pay it immediately. When he was taken to the clinic for pretending to be sick, Hussein saw a prisoner lying in the treatment room. Hussein admitted that his whole body ached because it was the first time he had jailed. But he was not allowed to stay overnight because the doctors saw that he was fine. Leonard showed the results of his investigation analysis about Paul Schernine to his colleague named Sophia. He suspects Paul and Louis are the same people who use clever tricks from the legend of the Lupin thief. Still, Sophia finds it unattractive because this is not concrete evidence. Hussein dares to disturb those 2 prisoners in prison by taunting them, and as a result he is stabbed, so he has to get treatment at the clinic. After receiving treatment, this good doctor finally allowed Hussein to stay. Hussein used this opportunity to ask Comet about his father, who used to be in the same cell room with him. Comet said that at that time, he deposited a book, and if one day there is someone who asks about the truth of himself, just give that book. Comet, who is dying, tells Hussein to take the book piled up with his belongings. Little Hussein got help from an unnamed benefactor to get into the best private school in France, so that he would become a successful person. Since that, Hussein has loved reading a book about Lupin, who hides in his Bible. Went into the cell room of Comet, Hussein found the book referred to. In the book, Babacar marked the words from each page, which is if put together into a sentence, "I am not guilty," being framed by Anne Pellegrini. Meanwhile, Havard is furious when Juliet asks if it was true that Babacar had stolen his necklace 25 years ago. Hussein returned to the prison court to play basketball. It needed to be clarified what his plan was, but with the speed of his hands, Hussein stole the rope from the basketball hoop. After that, Hussein returned to the clinic to change his bandages. The doctor said the time for Comet didn't have much time left because of his chronic illness. Comet asked Hussein for help to make his wife smile. Hussein promised to do it, and at the same time thanked him for the book so he could avenge his father. He also thanked this prison doctor who had helped him. Raoul was given a book by his father reading about Lupin's prowess while in jail. At night, one of the prisoners was angry because his debt was not paid, planning to kill Hussein. Suddenly the doctor found Hussein already dead, hanging in the bathroom. His body then takes by ambulance. It turns out that the prisoner who wants to kill Hussein finds him already hanging in the bathroom, so he is back in his cell room. It turns out all of this was Hussein's plan by using the basketball hoop rope to hold his body weight and the medicine the doctor gave him to stop his pulse. The fact that Hussein was still alive. The next day, he stole the maid's hotel room access card belonging to the staff so that he could enter the hotel room of Anne Pellegrini. Hussein already knew that Anne had framed his father 25 years ago. This Babacar's ex-boss finally confessed that she had forced him to sign a confession. Anne promised to release him at that time if Babacar revealed it for Hussein. But Anne was wrong because the judge still punished him, and because Babacar didn't accept. Finally, he hanged himself. Because of her guilt, Anne became the benefactor of Hussein's education without his knowledge. Anne said that police named Lieutenant Dumont arranged this to frame his father, but she doesn't know the reason. It was revealed. Something else happened when Hussein went to school there. He started to befriend Benjamin, who helped him. Benjamin was happy because Hussein was able to get out of prison again. Secretly, Hussein gives one of his gemstones to Comet's wife, as per his promise to make her smile. Hussein's next target is Lieutenant Dumont to seek justice for his father. The scene shows that this man is a police commissioner named Dumont, who was a lieutenant when Hussein's father was arrested. Before going on duty in the morning, his wife made breakfast. They have a robotic musical instrument that can be commanded using voice. With his expertise as a robber as well as a hacker, Hussein hacks the CCTV camera network at Dumont's house so he can see all of his activities. Hussein then disguises himself as an aide officer to tell Dumont, who was at City Hall, that his computer. He saw several vulgar videos. When he was taken to the room downstairs, their assailant carried out his action by tapping the nerves in Dumont's chest until he was unconscious. He took Dumont's cell phone to remove the SIM card. After that, Dumont was put in a box and taken using a van car with the help of an older man. Assailant uses a loudspeaker to interrogate Dumont. To remember past events, Assailant shows a photo of Babacar, but Dumont admits that he has forgotten. The film goes back to 1995, when Dumont investigates the theft of the diamond necklace. At that time, Babacar denies not stealing the necklace, but Habert doesn't believe it. Because the chain is missing, Babacar has the right to be released because there is no evidence. Dumont knows that Habert had registered the insurance policy for the necklace before it was stolen. Based on his profile, Babacar has no criminal record, and because of that, Dumont doubts he is the culprit. After Assailant showed some of the documents, finally, Dumont recalled that. He felt that he had not framed Babacar. But why did he put him in prison, even though there was no evidence of the necklace, and only used Babacar's guilty that Dumont had forced? Dumont instead asked who he was. The entire police were busy after news of Dumont's disappearance, after he was last seen with a man at City Hall. Assailant then shows some of the suspects who were released by Dumont, who was suspected of giving bribes to him. Assailant would not report this to Internal Affairs, which he thought was unpleasant, but to Dumont's wife. Because Dumont still didn't admit what he had done, Assailant immediately called his wife, but she could not hear Dumont's voice. He was so thirsty, Dumont asked for a bottle of water. Here Assailant on purpose turns off the lights, so this police commissioner doesn't see his face. Suddenly, Claire calls Assailant, reminding him about Raoul's birthday, which he always forgets. It is revealed here at the beginning of Assailant's close relationship with Claire when they are in the same class. At that time, Assailant protected Claire from her disruptive classmate. The police started picking up clues from a van car circling at the City Hall. Assailant's face was caught on a CCTV camera, but it wasn't obvious. Youssef then says that the police cell phone used a chipset and GPS with an autonomous battery so that they could track him. Assailant gets angry because Dumont was stubborn. He doesn't want to admit his criminal action, until Assailant asks strictly why he framed his father. Here Dumont knows that this person is Assailant. Meanwhile, the police team managed to find the location from the GPS coordinates on Dumont's phone. They immediately moved to the area to save this police commissioner. Dumont apologizes to Assailant about his father's problem. He promises not to report Assailant. If he releases him, Assailant ends his interrogation with Dumont and is about to forgive him. The police team found the van car in a box they suspected contained Dumont, even though only a clown doll. Assailant cleverly managed to trap them. This man was paid only to bring this equipment. Youssef believes the culprit and Dumont is still in City Hall. Even though this is called an act of a crazy person. Youssef read the book of Arsène Lupin, and that is what he did. And it was true that Assailant was out of the City Hall as the police arrived. After being released, this commissioner of police didn't want to give any testimony to his subordinate. Youssef believed that Paul Chernin and the perpetrator of the kidnapping of Dumont were the same person. He showed proof that their superior was an investigator when the necklace was stolen 25 years ago. Came to his house, Dumont immediately destroyed every camera hidden there so that Assailant could no longer watch him. It turned out that at that time, Dumont made a deal with Habert that would force Babacar to sign his confession, even if the necklace was not found. In return, Habert will recommend a promotion to Dumont as he is close to the Minister of the Interior. Dumont then contacted Habert to discuss the problem with the necklace because there were other people involved. When his wife arrived, they were surprised because their music player had been hacked by Assailant, who was increasingly convinced that Dumont had indeed not changed. A drone came to Habert's house and installed the infrared. After successfully passing it, that drone recorded some documents on his table. When flying again, the drone crossed the infrared line, which made the alarm system goes on. Habert woke up, and the security team then went in to look for the intruders. The drone had been paralyzed and then handed over to Habert. There was a piece of paper that said, "I will finish you." It turned out that on the roof of Habert's house, Assailant was seen there. While enjoying a cup of coffee, Dumont was surprised by the appearance of Assailant. He wanted to know about Pellegrini, but Dumont kept his mouth shut until Assailant threatened his wife, who should be in the office. Dumont finally mentions a journalist named Fabienne Beria who could help him destroy Pellegrini. Assailant. Then he found out about Fabienne in the news column, which said several years ago that journalists paid a fine at Habert. Assailant then buys a book containing Fabienne's writings about the Pellegrini crime system. When Fabienne goes home, Asane is already inside her house. Feeling old and weak, this journalist wasn't afraid when seeing a man she didn't know. Besides asking for a signature, Asane asks Fabienne to work together to destroy Pellegrini. But this older woman refused even though Asane had explained about his father, who was framed by Pellegrini 25 years ago, until his father hangs himself in prison because he felt ashamed. Even though Dumont didn't want to reveal the facts about the perpetrator of his kidnapping, his three men were still eager to find the perpetrator's identity. Again and again, Youssef connected this perpetrator with Lupin's character as a reliable thief in changing his identity. They would also sketch the perpetrator's face according to the characteristics they found. Asane doesn't suspect that Fabienne found his house. Fabienne realizes Pellegrini's actions have destroyed her life and career, so she is considered a mad woman. Therefore, there is nothing wrong if Fabienne helps Asane. The point was that Pellegrini framed Babacar to get insurance when his company was almost out of business. Fabienne showed him the company where she used to work, called the Objector. There, Fabienne kept a videotape containing evidence of the Pellegrini crime. Because she was no longer allowed to enter there, Asane, an expert infiltrating, immediately took action. Asane is disguised as a bookworm man. Fabienne calls the security officer pretending to be an investigative journalist, Nathalie, and asks the officer to let this informant go up to the third floor to meet her. Meanwhile, the police team was still trying to sketch Asane's face. After successfully getting the videotape, the security officer realizes that Nathalie is on sick leave. Fortunately, Asane had already run away. Fabienne mentioned the 1996 attack on the French-Malaysian embassy, which made 11 French citizens dead because of the work of gun smugglers who felt cheated by Pellegrini. In the video footage, Pellegrini was seen making a transaction with the weapons smuggler. Asane had plans to spread it via Twitter and drown Pellegrini. However, as a good journalist, Fabienne will keep the source of the video she got secret. When Pellegrini was meeting with the directors of his company, they suddenly saw the news that went viral on Twitter. Juliet then confirmed it to her father. Still, he didn't care and told her to delete it. Juliet didn't want her humanitarian foundation to be disrupted due to the news that an account named Salvator. In press conference, Habert claimed to be a generous person who built his company with hard work and effort. He challenged Salvatore, who was spreading false rumors, to get out and show himself. Suddenly, Fabienne, who was there, asked if he was involved in the fall of victims in Kuala Lumpur. Pellegrini was surprised when he heard the question and chose to end the press conference. A subordinate of Pellegrini is seen following Fabienne. Fabienne admitted that she was happy to be able to come there because all this time she had harbored pain in her heart for Pellegrini. She also said that Pellegrini's subordinate followed her but was able to deceive him. Asane decided to show his identity as Salvatore to answer the challenge of Pellegrini. With 2 million viewers every night, Asane believes this is a golden opportunity to destroy Pellegrini. Dumont's subordinate showed a sketch of a face that, according to him, didn't resemble his captor. But when Youssef showed the last drawing, it was clear that it was very similar to Asane, that he got the characteristics from Vincent. Still, again and again, Dumont avoided it because he didn't want the facts of his past to be revealed again. And then, Asane changes his face before attending the TV shows. With a lot of hair on his face, Asane appeared as Salvatore. At her house, Juliet watched this program to see his figure. After the tape was played, it turned out that the television cut part of the contents of the video about illegal weapons sales done by Pellegrini. Asane was shocked because Pellegrini had bribed this TV shows. Even some of Pellegrini's men were assigned to catch him. Luckily, Asane managed to paralyze them and immediately ran away from there. Juliet then contacted her father, and according to her, Salvatore was very similar to Asane, Aka Babacar's son. That night, Fabienne wrote something in her book, which gave by Asane. Suddenly, someone enters her house, and he is the hitman Pellegrini named Leo. When Asane comes to Fabienne's house, what a shock when he finds this journalist hanged and died. In the book, Fabienne wrote a message for Asane. They may lose this time, but she is sure that Asane will not just give up. Youssef's belief that Salvatore is the same perpetrator who kidnapped his commander. When Asane was walking, Leo followed him, so he ran to trick him. After escaping successfully, Asane gives Raoul a present hat and magician costume, and asks them to walk using the train. It was revealed again, since 2006, that Asane had become an accomplished robber. Disguised as a detective, Asane ordered 2 police patrols to guard outside the informer house. This older woman is so scared because Hussein said that there is a thief in her neighbor's apartment. Because it cannot be watched in 24 hours, Hussein offered this woman to secure her valuables at the police headquarters until the perpetrator was caught. He also showed 2 of his men standing guard outside. Because her husband worked in the Congo diamond mines, it is not weird that this woman has luxury jewelry including earrings. At that time, Claire felt her relationship with Hussein was starting to deteriorate because she knew his profession, and Hussein often broke his promises. One day, Claire wanted to meet him at a place of silence to tell him something important. It turned out that at that time, Juliet wanted Hussein, which she loved so much. Still, Hussein preferred Claire. One of his stolen earrings was put in Juliet's ears without her realizing it. While traveling on the train, Hussein looked jealous because, at this time, Claire was close to a doctor named Mark. When they took a photo, Hussein saw Leo in the back seat. Pellegrini assigned Leo to get rid of Hussein for forever. Hussein then opened a birthday cake for his son so that he would see Leo. Hussein pretended to go to the toilet. When Leo followed him, Hussein stole the key from the ticketing staff. Leo was surprised when he arrived in the last train carriage because Hussein immediately beat him. After that, Leo was locked in the room. At that time, Claire told Hussein that she was pregnant. He was delighted when he heard that and even told all the restaurant visitors. Still, because he saw Emma, whom he had deceived, Hussein hurriedly invited Claire to go. Hussein was shocked because Leo managed to get out of the room, and he sat beside Raoul as a form of threat. Suddenly, Captain Romain got a message from the thief of Paul Chernin's necklace if he would arrive at La Havre station. When Hussein gets off the train, the police team immediately catches Leo with a gun and a diamond in his pocket as evidence. It turns out that Hussein accidentally put the diamond in his pocket, and he is not realizing it. Hussein then invites Claire and Raoul to take a walk on the beach. Hussein asks Claire to understand and to give him time because he is working on something about his father's good name after this is done. Hussein promises to tell everything. Suddenly, they realize that Raoul was not near them. Dumont's subordinates were again confused because their boss freed Leo, who was carrying a gun and a diamond. Dumont reasoned that the man had been framed. They were given the order to look for the real culprit. Hussein and Claire trying to look for Raoul along the beach. Suddenly, Yusuf appears and calls Hussein by the name Lupin. The scene then moves to that morning. Yusuf was on the same train when Hussein traveled. So when Yusuf calls Lupin to Hussein, he meant to ask Raoul if they were looking for Raoul, who is wearing Lupin's costume. Yusuf realizes he is dealing with the criminal he was hunting, pretending to help. Film then back to when Claire suddenly doesn't want to talk to Hussein. When Hussein followed her, it turned out that Claire went into the violin shop to check her violin, which someone had damaged. A shop owner said repairing her violin cost more than buying a new one, even though Claire needed it for an audition, which was very important in her life. When Claire played one of the violins, Hussein felt amazed by the talent of this woman he admired. Because he had no money to buy it, Hussein asked the shop owner to rent it. While on his way to a remote area, Yusuf couldn't see Google Maps because there was no signal. He asked Hussein to stop first at the nearest town so he could call his wife. Meanwhile, Leo put Raoul in the car's trunk so no one else would see his crimes. Leo went into a cafe in the nearby city area to buy drinks and contacted Pellegrini. Only a short time after, Yusuf and Hussein arrived at this location. He is pretending to call his wife, even though Yusuf reached Sofia, that he was with their hunted target. Sofia had to come to this city immediately to catch him. When Hussein came in, he heard the word arresting blurted by Yusuf. The culprit's car seemed to go away. Because of that, Hussein and Yusuf chase him again. The chase ensued. Unfortunately, he lost track when he found an intersection. While Leo took Raoul to an old house. Inheriting talent from his father, Raoul managed to steal Leo's cell phone to send a message to Hussein. In this old house, Leo found some knives and rifles. Instead of sneaking in, Hussein called Leo to challenge him while standing in front of the house. Meanwhile, Sofia was seen on the way to this location for about 1 hour and a half. Yusuf was surprised when Hussein already knew he was a policeman and asked for help from his colleagues to catch Hussein. Even though he couldn't even move because, without he realized, Hussein had tied his hands and stolen his wallet. When Hussein entered the old house, Leo was ready with his gun. Because it was dark, Leo had shot his gun, even though it was just a hanging chandelier that fell. Soon a fight ensued until Hussein managed to throw Leo from the top floor to outside the house. Hussein then looked for Raoul's whereabouts in this house. It was unexpected that Leo was still alive. Then he stood up again to burn the car because it turned out that Raoul was still in the trunk. The car exploded right in front of Hussein, who could only mourn the death of his son. At the same time, Sophia came to catch him, the same as when it was Claire saw the owner of the violin shop coming with the police to arrest little Hussein. Shortly, the firefighters came to put out the fire that burned the car. After that, they opened the trunk of the car. Sophia then took Hussein to Paris. Oddly enough, she didn't find her friends. While on the way, Sophia told Hussein that in the trunk, she didn't see anyone except a drink. Hussein could be relieved because it meant that Raoul was still alive. When gasping, Hussein took this opportunity to go to the toilet. Sophia's subordinates were assigned to escort him. When she entered the bathroom in handcuffs, Hussein asked the police to come in to help hold his magic wand. Suddenly, Hussein manages to escape and pretends to be a policeman who tells a man to check his car's tires. Hussein stole his car while shooting Sophia's tires. The police were handcuffed in the toilet, while Sophia, who realized that she had been tricked, could not catch up with him. It was revealed when Youssef was left in the car with his hands tied. He broke the car's window to cut the rope. When he heard Raoul stuck in the trunk of the fired car with a rush, Youssef saved him. Leo, who saw them run away, tried to chase and shoot them. Youssef claimed to be a friend of Hussein who would take Raoul to a safe place. Meanwhile, Habert pressured Dumont so that his men would bring Raoul to him to provoke for Hussein. Even though this action was illegal and risky, Dumont had no choice. Dumont then sends a message to Youssef's cell phone to bring Hussein's son to him. Even though Hussein held the cell phone, Hussein smiled because now he was sure his son was safe and was with Youssef. Arriving in Paris, the Pellegrini gang directed Youssef to take Raoul to the Hyatt Hotel because Dumont was waiting there. Arriving at the hotel, Dumont immediately brings Raoul because Dumont will handle this case directly. Even though he feels that there is something wrong, Youssef has no choice because this was an order from his boss. Raoul suddenly called Hussein to say that he was in the Hyatt Hotel. Even though it was bait, Habert and his accomplice easily caught Hussein. When he left the hotel, Youssef got a package containing his cell phone and a thank you. Habert and his daughter held a fundraising event at the same hotel for their foundation. This time, Hussein disguised himself as a kitchen worker at the hotel. But the security guard there who recognized him immediately hunted down Hussein. After successfully paralyzing them, Hussein was chased by 2 other officers. Even though it failed with his first plan, Hussein found another idea. Pellegrini contacted Dumont to deliver Raoul to his crew's car, waiting in the basement to be taken to a safer place. After that, Pellegrini said Dumont can meet him. But his cell phone rang again because the call came from Pellegrini, even though he was in front of him. Finally, Dumont and Pellegrini realized Hussein had tricked them. Hussein remembered the trick he had done when the violin owner reported him. At that time, he sent a voice message to the school head to give an opportunity second to Hussein, even though it was Hussein's voice disguised, so he wouldn't be kicked out of school. Because of that, Hussein made his voice as similar as possible to Pellegrini to trick Dumont, and the person who picked up Raoul, the fact was Hussein. When his son asks if he is a thief, Hussein can't lie and be silent. Hussein then explains about Pellegrini crime to the grandfather of Raoul. Because of that, he can't stop until they suffer the consequences. Hussein promises to change after that. Raoul supported his father to continue this mission. 24 earlier, Claire, who was sad because she lost Raoul, she is returned home by train. She was shocked when she saw Salvator's figure, similar to Hussein. Therefore, Claire met Benjamin because she was sure this Hussein's friend knew the truth. Claire asks Benjamin for help to save Raoul from Pellegrini. That's when Claire dares to meet Pellegrini without Hussein's knowledge. She gave one of the diamonds to Pellegrini and promised to give it all as long as Raoul can be released. But this high-class criminal refused because what he wanted was Hussein. When Hussein was seen taking Raoul, it turned out that in Claire's house, several people were already paid for by Pellegrini. That's when Claire told Hussein to run. Hussein managed to escape. Then he hid on the ceiling of the house when Pellegrini's men chased him. On one side, Claire could meet her son again. Still, since then, she doesn't want to see Hussein anymore, who is the cause of all the problems. Hussein, who is above hearing all of Claire's words about himself, to repay Pellegrini's actions toward his son, Hussein will target his daughter. One day, Hussein calls Youssef to come to Paul's cafe Sunday at 10, and alone in the morning. Youssef was surprised because Hussein knew if he spilled his coffee. At that time, little Youssef, assisted by Benjamin, began to make money by deceiving glass tricks. That night, Hussein, who was passing by, was suddenly called by Juliet to enter the restaurant. They both immediately had dinner there. Meanwhile, Pellegrini met a man named Philip. He is checking the finances of the benefactors and including counting the donation to his foundation. By the assumption 30% of people who didn't donate, Pellegrini will get 10 million euros. Pellegrini controls 15% money in the account of his foundation, but 85% goes to his personal account. The illegal action done by him turns out Juliet didn't know it. Back to Asane and Juliet, who feels her life comfortable with the activities of the foundation she manages. But she thinks that she lacks the adrenaline done by Asane. Asane then asked, whose name was this table? Juliet said she should have met a Canadian donor named Fellman, but until now he has come. Asane then asked Juliet to run away from the restaurant. When the waiter brought bill, it turned out that they had both disappeared. That night, Juliet was happy, especially Asane took her past the pier where they had been before. Benjamin was quite surprised when Claire came with her boyfriend, named Mark. Without knowledge of Claire, this doctor buys a bracelet that he saw at Benjamin's shop for a gift to Claire. Asane had stopped at the museum to see Juliet. The camera then focused on a valuable painting on display there. Mark then gives the bracelet as a gift to Claire. Juliet is surprised when she receives a Pissarro painting. At the same time, the news appears in the media that the precious painting has been stolen. Juliet was shocked because suddenly, 2 police came to ask for information about the painting. After all, yesterday, Juliet was detected there. They even knew that Juliet had received the package. Juliet realizes that Asane deliberately theft the painting to win her heart again. Here, Juliet even challenges Asane. If his intentions are serious, Juliet wants Asane to steal the bracelet, worn by Claire given by her boyfriend. Seen on social media, Asane also finds out from Benjamin that the bracelet is scarce. There was no way he could repurchase it from Claire or her boyfriend. Asane's only option was to steal it from Claire, who of course he never did. While Claire was sleeping secretly, Asane came in to steal her bracelet. He gave it to Juliet as a form of seriousness. Asane wants to return to his relationship with Juliet, but he must know about Pellegrini, who framed his father 25 years ago. Juliet was told to meet her mother so she would see the truth. Before leaving, Asane gave Yusef's phone number, who he knew as honest police. The painting was finally returned to its original place, and the bracelet of Claire. Juliet then met her mother. A week before Asane managed to get Juliet's heart, the plan started when Benjamin pretended to be Fellman to book a seat at the restaurant. Then Benjamin contacted Juliet, a benefactor from Canada who wanted to meet her. So they arranged Asane and Juliet's meeting at the restaurant, including bribing the waiter, paying the bill in advance, and paying compensation for the motorbike he borrows. And the theft of the painting didn't happen, because it seemed as if it was broadcast in the media even though they changed the writing. The 2 police who were sent to Juliet's house were Asane's friends when he was in prison, the last one. The painting sent to Juliet was a replica made by Benjamin. Juliet finally found out from her mother that her father trapped and scapegoated Babacar for their own gain. Juliet then gave the police contact to Anne to let her mother tell the truth. Shortly, Anne met Yusef. Not long after, while Pellegrini was signing his contract with Philip, the police team came to arrest him. But was Asane's mission complete, and how did it relate to Juliet? The scene then shows someone hitting a man carrying a suitcase, then his briefcase was stolen. Asane, who was there, immediately chased the perpetrator and managed to return the suitcase. Still, this man was surprised because Asane knew his name, namely Lucas. Pellegrini, who arrested by police, he looked relaxed because he was sure his friend, the Minister of Home Affairs, would contact him soon. When he was shown a photo of the perpetrator who stole his necklace, Pellegrini said he was Asane Diop. But when Leo's photo is shown, Pellegrini avoids knowing him. The hitman, now a fugitive, was identified as living in one of Pellegrini's apartments. Shortly after that, the Minister of Home Affairs ordered to release Pellegrini. Juliet returned to meet Asane. She was worried that after her father was released, he would hurt the person who reported him, namely her mother. Juliet had thought about canceling her charity concert, but Asane disagreed because this event was significant for her foundation and the future of her children. Asane assures Juliet that everything will be fine. Meanwhile, Pellegrini assigns Leo to hunt down Asane by following his friend Benjamin. But after Leo leaves, Pellegrini sets Pascal to carry out his secret assignment. Benjamin intends to deliver the Fabien's dog legacy to Asane. He didn't realize that Leo following him. The police called Claire to reveal the location of Asane's hideout. Claire admitted that she didn't know because he often moved around. When Benjamin arrived at Asane's house, the confidant of Pellegrini knew the location of his hideout. After Benjamin returned from Asane's home, It was Leo's turn to sneak in to kill Hussein. Hussein, who was busy cooking while listening to music, not realizing that a killer has entered. Unexpectedly, Pascal appeared and immediately strangled Leo to death. It's clear here that Pellegrini arranged all of this to trap Hussein. The police immediately moved when they received a report of a fight at Hussein's house. Pellegrini looks relaxed because his plan was successful. Suddenly, Hussein was shocked when he saw Leo's body lying in his house. At the same time as a police siren heading there, Hussein was forced to leave his home. This news of this murder went viral, because now Hussein is the most wanted fugitive in all of Paris. Apart from Claire, who was shocked when she saw this broadcast, Juliet also felt the same way. The crime scene is being carried out by the police at Hussein's house. Youssef had a chance to hold a lamp. Benjamin, who was not yet watching the news, was contacted by Hussein to get packed because that criminal was hunting him too. When Benjamin is walking, Hussein reaches him again. It turns out that a man is following Benjamin. Hussein gives directions to his friend, "Please don't run and don't panic." After he sits on the bench at the bus stop, Pascal joins sitting there. Benjamin is scared because the man beside him is a cold-blooded killer. When he got on the bus, the man went up too, and because of that, Hussein told him to go down again through the back door when the bus was almost running again. The plan was successful, and it turned out that Hussein was nearby him. The two of them had disappeared. Hussein and Benjamin entered a container warehouse. With his skills, he managed to steal the cell phone belonging to the officer there. Dumont, who got the information about Benjamin's shop from Pellegrini, he immediately assigned his subordinate to move there. From searching the shop, Romain and Sophia got information on the location of his container house. When he heard the sound of the police surrounding this location, Hussein immediately took the map the curly woman had given him. After breaking down the door, Romain and Sophia found a secret passage to the underground passage. Meanwhile, Youssef, who was reading an article about Hussein, saw in the comments column a private message addressed to him. After being analyzed, Youssef remembers the sentence "Jewish lamp" very well. He once held the lamp and was in the evidence room. Meanwhile, the two police were still pursuing on the cave. Sophia was frightened because of the large number of human bones. It turned out that they met tour participants. All the tour locations. Finally, it was closed, and it was seen that the lady in charge of selling the tickets was still the same person with her curly hair. Meanwhile, Hussein and Benjamin were still trying to find the secret exit with the map guide. They finally found a towering ladder and managed to get out of there. In a light candle, Youssef found a flash disk. Meanwhile, Pellegrini gathered with his accomplice. There was Pascal, then Philip, who was in charge of managing the finances of the benefactors, and the last one was Dumont. In the flash disk, Youssef saw all the evidence about Dumont's crimes and his confession when Hussein kidnapped him. In the preparations for the charity concert, Philip brought enough electronic equipment and computers to support the application for the distribution of donations. Pascal and Dumont were on duty to ensure that the event ran safely and prevented Hussein from entering this critical event. Pellegrini is worried about when Hussein sneaks into this charity concert. 3 weeks before the show, Benjamin finds Lucas's name on Pellegrini's desk. Lucas is the manager of the wealthy and is known for offering safe investments to rich people, including Pellegrini. He saves the secret file in his suitcase, including an account number and the password. That's why Benjamin pretended to crash and then stole his suitcase, and Hussein chased him, even though they copied all the files in the briefcase. They needed an accomplice to carry out this mission, so they went to the library, which provides books about Lupin. They saw one by one the visitors who came there to find the best candidate, until they'd finally found a man who had talent because he knew Hussein and Benjamin were watching his activities. After he agreed to the task, his hair was cut, then all the accessories were removed. And it turned out that this man was Philip, who was rewarded with 1 diamond for carrying out his task. Hussein then called Lucas and pretended to be from Brussels, who received a report from the financial market regulator. Lucas reported to Pellegrini about a man named Philip who has a clever method of withdrawing funds and safe investment. During the meeting, Pellegrini was so interested in Philip's offer to suck up donations held at his foundation's concert. Hussein hid in the computer toolbox brought by Phillips so he could enter the building. Dumont had intercepted them to check the boxes. Fortunately, Philip managed to trick him. Sophia received a report that the traces of the perpetrator who entered Hussein's house to kill Leo didn't match him. Youssef finally told Sophia the facts about Dumont from the recording. He also said that the killing victim, who has been in prison with Babacar, and the police who investigated it was Dumont. Because all of this was obvious, their superiors had to be arrested. Ahead of this charity concert, the public was shocked by the question, will Hussein, currently a fugitive, appear again like at other events? In the building, Philip explains about his app, which will display the total amount of donations. So when is the peak step that Hussein will take to destroy this Pellegrini? Thousands of invitees have attended the event, as well as the 3 French police. Juliet then opened the event and invited visitors to start spreading the application and donating money to the humanitarian foundation she manages. Now, Pellegrini was laughing because he was about to make big money soon. Philip saw on his computer screen coffers money had started to come in with a value of millions of euros. Suddenly, Pellegrini was shocked by the appearance of Hussein, who threatened him with a knife. Pellegrini confessed his lecherous actions and assigned Leo to kill Fabien. He also gave Pascal the to kill Leo so he could trap Hussein. And the last fact was that Pellegrini had framed Hussein's father for stealing the necklace, then assigned Leo to kill him in prison. Hussein had thought about killing him, but he didn't want to be trapped as a killer and chose to run away. All the security forces immediately hunted down Hussein, including the Special Forces team, which was immediately deployed inside. A fierce fight ensues between Hussein and Pascal. Finally, Hussein manages to paralyze him. When Dumont ambushes him precisely, his 3 subordinates appear to catch Dumont. At that time, Hussein enters the main stage to reveal all the crimes of Pellegrini. Benjamin immediately turned off the lights when the Special Forces were about to arrest him. The situation got chaotic, and that's when Philip immediately secured the donations into one account. When everyone left the building but not for Hussein, Philip earned his last diamond in return. Pellegrini or Hussein's team didn't take the hundreds of billions collected from this event, but were still safe in the account of the foundation. Hussein left the building disguised as a firefighter. The other fact is that Hussein recorded all of Pellegrini's confessions and sent them to Yusuf as proof of his crime. When he took off his wig, the police saw Hussein and immediately gave chase. Luckily, he manages to escape by riding the ship. He left a message for Claire and Raoul to meet on the bridge, while Pellegrini and Dumont were arrested for being responsible for their crimes. On that bridge, Hussein could hug them back, even if only for a moment, because he had to disappear again. And after that, the film ends.